Please, you have to help me find her.
Oh, here you are. I have been looking for you everywhere. I searched everywhere. I'm sorry. Oh, Chinelo, what have I done to you? I caused this to you.
The helicopter blade sliced through the morning air like thunder, sending dust and trash swirling across the crowded market. Women screamed, grabbing their children. Men stumbled backward, shielding their faces. Mama Peace dropped the ladle she was holding, her heart hammering against her ribs as the black aircraft descended right in front of her food stall. The wind from the rotors knocked over her pot of jollof rice, spilling red grains across the date. She had never seen anything like this in her 43 years of life. Her hands trembled as she watched the helicopter door swing open, and a man in an expensive gray suit jumped out, followed by 4 security guards in black. The man's face was twisted with desperation, his eyes red and swollen like he hadn't slept in days. He was clutching a photograph in his shaking hands, holding it up like a weapon, like a prayer. The entire market fell silent, watching this wealthy stranger skin the crowd with wild, frantic movements. Then his eyes locked on something behind Mama Peace's stall, and his entire body went rigid. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. The photograph slipped from his fingers and floated to the ground. Mama Peace turned slowly, following his gaze, and her stomach dropped. He was staring at the homeless woman, the quiet, broken woman who had been sitting beside her stall every single day for the past 3 months. The woman Mama Peace had been feeding in secret, the one who never spoke more than 2 words, the one whose eyes held more pain than any human should carry. The billionaire took one stumbling step forward, then another, his polished shoes sinking into the market date. When he finally spoke, his voice cracked like broken glass. "Chinelo," he whispered, and then louder, his voice breaking completely. "Chinelo, my God, what have I done to you?" If you're already hooked by this story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel, because what happens next will leave you speechless. Before I tell you how this billionaire destroyed his own wife and why he's searching for her now, let me take you back 3 months earlier, to the day Mama Peace first noticed a woman who would change everything. Mama Peace ran the most popular food stall in Agba market, not because her food was the cheapest, but because her jollof rice carried something extra. Love, people said, or maybe just a desperation of a woman trying to feed 3 children alone after her husband died. Every morning at 5, she would wake up in their single room in the crowded compound, wake her children, make sure they dressed for school, then rush to the market to start cooking. By 7, the smell of tomatoes, onions, and curry would fill the air, and customers would start lining up. She knew most of them by name, knew their stories, knew who was struggling and who had just gotten paid. That's why she noticed the woman on the very first day. The woman appeared like a ghost one Tuesday morning, wearing clothes that might have been expensive once but were now torn and filthy. She sat on the ground about 10 feet from Mama Peace's stall, her back against the concrete wall, her head down, her arms wrapped around her knees. She didn't beg, didn't ask for anything, didn't even look at the food. She just sat there, so still she could have been a statue. Most people ignored her. Lagos was full of homeless people, and everyone had their own problems. But something about this woman pulled at Mama Peace's heart. Maybe it was the way she held herself, like she was trying to disappear. Maybe it was the expensive wedding ring still on her finger, scratched and dull but clearly real gold. Or maybe it was the way her eyes looked when she finally lifted her head, empty, completely empty, like someone had reached inside and scooped out her soul. Mama Peace tried to focus on her customers, tried to ignore the uncomfortable feeling in her chest, but she kept glancing over at the woman throughout the morning. By noon, when the lunch rush finally slowed down, Mama Peace couldn't take it anymore. She scooped a generous portion of jollof rice into a takeaway plate, added 3 pieces of fried chicken, covered it, and walked over to where the woman sat today. "Sister," Mama Peace said softly, crouching down, "please, eat something." The woman didn't respond at first, didn't even acknowledge that Mama Peace was there. Then, slowly, she lifted her head, and Mama Peace saw her face clearly for the first time. She was beautiful, or had been, before whatever happened to her. Her cheekbones were sharp, her skin was dark and smooth despite the dirt, and her eyes were the kind of brown that looked gold in sunlight. But those eyes were dead, completely dead, and there were bruises on her neck, fading but still visible. The woman stared at the food for a long moment, then shook her head slightly. "I didn't ask for anything," she whispered, her voice hoarse like she hadn't used it in weeks. "I know," Mama P said gently, "but I'm giving it anyway. Please." The woman's hands trembled as she reached for the plate, and when her fingers touched it, something broke inside her. Tears started rolling down her cheeks, silent and heavy, dropping onto the rice. She didn't make a sound, didn't sob or wipe her face. She just cried while she ate, slowly, like each bite was both painful and precious. Mama Peace watched her, feeling her own tears building, feeling something shift in her chest. "What's your name?" Mama Peace asked softly. The woman swallowed, then whispered, "Chinelo." That was all she said, just her name. Then she finished eating, placed the empty plate carefully on the ground, and whispered, "Thank you." She pulled her knees back to her chest and lowered her head again, shutting down, shutting out the world. Mama Peace went back to her stall, but she couldn't stop thinking about Chinelo, about the expensive ring, about the educated way she spoke, about the deep, bottomless pain in her eyes. This wasn't just another homeless person down on their luck. This was someone who had fallen from somewhere high, fallen hard, fallen far. Someone who had lost everything. That night, Mama Peace couldn't sleep. She kept seeing Chinelo's face, kept hearing that broken whisper, kept wondering what could destroy a person so completely. The next morning, Chinelo was back in the same spot, sitting the same way, like she hadn't moved all night. Mama Peace didn't ask permission this time. She just brought food when the morning rush ended, placed it beside Chinelo, and walked away. Chinelo ate it silently, tears falling again, but this time she looked up when she finished and nodded once, a tiny gesture that somehow meant everything. This became their routine. Every day, Chinelo would appear at dawn and sit by the wall. Every day, Mama Peace would feed her, usually twice, once in the morning, once in the afternoon. Chinelo never asked, never begged, never explained. She just accepted the food with silent tears and that small, heartbreaking nod. Weeks passed. Mama Peace's children started asking questions about the sad woman by Mama's store, and her neighbors whispered that she was wasting food on someone who was probably mad, probably on drugs, probably not worth the kindness. But Mama Peace didn't stop. She couldn't explain why, exactly. Maybe it was because she knew what it felt like to lose everything. When her husband died, she had almost broken too. Maybe it was because something in Chinelo's eyes reminded her of her own reflection during the darkest days. Or maybe it was simpler than that. Maybe she fed Chinelo because everyone deserves to know that someone sees them, someone cares, someone hasn't given up on them. 3 months passed like this, with Chinelo slowly, almost invisibly, starting to heal. The bruises on her neck faded completely. Her eyes became a little less empty, a little more present. She started eating faster, with less crying, and sometimes she would sit and watch the market activity instead of staring at the ground. She never explained who she was or what had happened to her, and Mama Peace never pushed. Some wounds are too deep for questions. Then, on a Tuesday morning exactly like the one when Chinelo first appeared, everything exploded. Mama Peace was stirring a pot of stew when she heard the helicopter, that impossible sound that didn't belong in a crowded Lagos market. She looked up, confused, frightened, and watched it descend like something from a movie, watched the billionaire jump out with photograph and his guards, watched his face crumble when he saw Chinelo. Now, standing frozen in the chaos, watching this wealthy man stare at the homeless woman she had been feeding, Mama Peace felt the pieces clicking together in her mind. Pieces she hadn't even known were scattered. The expensive ring, the educated voice, the depth of Chinelo's pain. This wasn't just loss. This was betrayal. This was the kind of destruction that only comes from someone you love. The billionaire took another step toward Chinelo, his hands reaching out like he wanted to touch her, like he needed to make sure she was real. "Chinelo," he said again, his voice breaking, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please, I've been searching everywhere. Please." But Chinelo didn't move, didn't react, didn't even look at him. She just sat there against the wall, her face completely blank, like she was watching a stranger, like he was nobody at all. And somehow, that was more terrifying than anything else. If you want to know what this billionaire did to destroy his own wife and whether Chinelo will ever forgive him, don't go anywhere. Drop a comment below telling me what you think happened, and let's continue this story together. Chapter 2 is coming right now. The market stood frozen, hundreds of eyes locked on the scene unfolding before them. Mama Peace felt her heart pounding so hard she thought everyone could hear it. The billionaire, Mr. Williams, she would learn later, stood 5 feet from Chinelo, breathing hard, his expensive suit already coated with dust, his face wet with tears he wasn't bothering to hide. His security guards fanned out behind him, uncomfortable and alert, hands near their weapons, clearly not knowing how to handle a boss who was falling apart in public. Williams dropped to his knees right there in the date, his pressed trousers sinking into the mud and garbage, his manicured hands pressed together like he was praying. "Please," he begged, his voice carrying across the silent market. "Please, Chinelo, just look at me. Just let me explain. I know I don't deserve it. I know I destroyed everything. But please." Chinelo finally moved, but not the way he hoped. She turned her head away, staring at the wall instead, her jaw tight, her whole body radiating a cold, quiet rage that was somehow more powerful than screaming. When she spoke, her voice was soft but sharp enough to cut. "You want me to look at you," she said. "The way you looked at me when you called me a poisoner, when you threw me out of our house like trash, when you told security to make sure I could never come back." Williams flinched like she had slapped him, fresh tears spilling down his cheeks. "I was wrong," he choked out. "I was so wrong. Chinelo, I was a fool." "You were more than a fool," Chinelo interrupted, her voice still eerily calm. "You were cruel. You were evil. You chose to believe her over me." The crowd stayed, whispers starting to ripple through the market. Mima Peace moved closer without meaning to, drawn by the raw emotion, by the story unfolding like a wound being opened. Williams covered his face with both hands, his shoulders shaking. One of his security guards stepped forward, whispering urgently, "Sir, maybe we should take this somewhere private." But Williams waved him away violently. "No," he shouted. "No. I don't care who sees. I don't care who knows. I deserve every bit of this shame." He looked back at Chinelo, his eyes wild and desperate. "You want to know what happened after I threw you out? You want to know what your loving husband did?" Chinelo didn't respond, but Mama P saw her hands bowl into fists. Williams continued, words pouring out like poison being purged. "Grace, the woman I chose over you, the woman I believed when she said you tried to poison me, she stayed for 3 more days. 3 days. Chinelo. She pretended to take care of me, pretended to love me, and I was so stupid, so blinded by—" He choked on the words, couldn't finish. "By what?" Chinelo asked, her voice like ice. "Say it. Blinded by what?" "By lust," Williams admitted, the word falling like a stone. "By pride. By the fact that she made me feel young again, feel powerful, feel like I was still the man I was 20 years ago. And I threw away 22 years of marriage for it. 22 years of your loyalty, your love, your sacrifice, and I threw it away for 3 months of lies." The crowd was completely silent now, hanging on every word. Mima Peace felt tears on her own cheeks, her hand pressed against her chest. "On the 4th day," Williams continued, his voice shaking, "I woke up and she was gone. Not just gone, vanished. And so was Maxwell, my best friend, my business partner, the man who stood beside me at our wedding." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Chinelo's expression didn't change, but Mama P saw something flicker in her eyes, not satisfaction, not vindication, just a deep, tired sadness. "They cleaned out 3 of my accounts," Williams said, almost laughing now, a broken, bitter sound. 4 to 7 million naira, just gone. Maxwell had access because I trusted him, because I never thought. He shook his head. When I realized what happened, I called Grace's phone. It was disconnected. I called Maxwell. Disconnected. I went to Grace's apartment and found it completely empty, like she had never existed. I hired investigators, and you know what they found." He looked up at Chinelo, his eyes red and swollen. "They've been planning it for months, maybe years. Every sweet word Grace whispered to me, every time she told me you were jealous and controlling, every lie she fed me about you trying to hurt me, it was all a setup, all leading to this. And Maxwell, the man I called my brother, he was in on it from the beginning. The day they disappeared, they sent me one message from a burner phone." Williams pulled out his phone with shaking hands, opened it, and read aloud, "Thank you for being so easy to fool. Enjoy your lonely life with all your money. Oh, wait, you don't have as much in them all." His voice broke completely on the last words. The crowd erupted in angry murmurs, people shouting curses at the betrayers, women clicking their tongues in disgust. But Chinelo remained still, her face carved from stone. "That same day," Williams continued, dropping his phone in the date, "I went to the police, filed reports, hired lawyers, hired private investigators across 3 countries, and then I started looking for you." He reached out toward her, stopping just short of touching her. "Chinelo, I searched everywhere. I went to your mother's house. She cursed at me, wouldn't tell me anything. I went to your sister's place. She spat in my face. I deserved it. I deserved all of it. I hired people to search Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt. I put your photo everywhere. I spent millions looking for you because I needed to... To what?" Chinelo finally turned to face him fully, and Mama Peace almost gasped at the intensity in her eyes. "To apologize? To feel better about yourself? To ease your guilt?" Williams shook his head frantically. "No. Yes, I don't know. To try to fix what I broke. To beg for another chance. To give me back my life." Chinelo asked quietly, "To give me back the 3 months I spent sleeping on the streets because you destroyed my reputation so thoroughly that even my friends were afraid to help me? To give me back my dignity, my trust, my ability to sleep without nightmares?" Williams had no answer, just choked sobs. Mama P stepped forward, her voice gentle but firm. "Sir, I think that's enough for today. She's been through too much, and this is..." But Chinelo held up one hand, stopping her. "No, Mama Peace. Let him finish. I want to hear what he thinks he can offer me now." She looked back at Williams, her eyes hard. "What do you want, Mr. Williams? What did you fly here in your helicopter to say?" Williams wiped his face with his sleeve, trying to compose himself. "I want to take you home," he said. "I want to take care of you, get you medical help, therapy, whatever you need. I want to... Give me money." Chinelo finished. "Shower me with guilt gifts. Put me back in that big empty house where you destroyed me." "It's your house, too," Williams said desperately. "Everything I have is yours. It was always yours, and I don't want it." Chinelo said flatly. The words hit Williams like a physical blow. He stared at her, uncomprehending. "What?" "I don't want your house, your money, your guilt, or your apologies," Chinelo said, her voice growing stronger. "I don't want anything from you except for you to leave." "Chinelo, please. You threw me away," she continued, standing up now for the first time, and Mama P saw she was taller than she'd seemed, saw the strength that had been hiding under all that brokenness. "You threw me away like I was nothing, like 22 years meant nothing, like I was garbage. And now you want me back because your mistress betrayed you, because you finally realized what you lost." William scrambled to his feet, reaching for her. "No, because I love you, because I never stopped. You stopped the moment you chose to believe her over me." Chinelo cut him off, her voice rising for the first time, filled with a pain so deep it made Mama Peace's chest ache. "You stopped when you looked me in the eyes and called me a liar. You stopped when you had your guards drag me out while I begged you to listen. You stopped when you told me you never wanted to see my face again." Tears were streaming down her face now, but her voice remained steady. "So no, Mr. Williams. I don't care how sorry you are. I don't care how much you've suffered. I don't care if you search for me for the rest of your life." She took one step closer to him, and he froze, hope and fear warring on his face. "I am done being destroyed by you," Chinelo said quietly, each word deliberate and final. "I am done letting you decide my worth. I am done being Mrs. Williams." She pulled the gold wedding ring from her finger, the ring Mama Peace had noticed months ago, the ring Chinelo had kept despite everything. She held it out, and for a moment, Williams just stared at it, his face crumbling. Then Chinelo dropped it at his feet, where it landed in the mud with a soft plop. "We're done," she said. "Now get back in your helicopter and go back to your empty life." Williams made a sound like a wounded animal, falling to his knees again, his hands scrambling in the mud for the ring. The market erupted in shouts, some people cheering for Chinelo, others yelling at Williams, total chaos breaking out. Mima-Peace moved to Chinelo's side, putting a protective arm around her shoulders as the security guards moved forward, trying to form a barrier. But then someone in the crowd shouted something that made everyone freeze. She was pregnant. Every head turned. An elderly woman pushed through the crowd, pointing at Chinelo, her eyes blazing with anger. She was pregnant when you threw her out. I saw her at the hospital that day, 3 months pregnant, and you threw her and your baby into the streets like dogs. What happened to Chinelo's baby? Can Williams ever make things right? Drop a like if you're as shocked as I am, and comment below. Do you think she should forgive him or not? Don't go anywhere because Chapter 3 will blow your mind. The word hung in the air like a bomb that had already exploded, and Mima-Peace felt the shockwave roll through the crowd. Williams went completely still on his knees, his hands frozen in the mud, his face draining of all color until he looked like a ghost. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out, just this horrible gasping noise like he was drowning in air. Chinelo's entire body went rigid under Mima-Peace's arm, every muscle locking up, and for a terrifying moment Mima-Peace thought she might collapse. The security guards looked at each other in confusion, clearly not knowing what to do, while the crowd pressed closer, everyone trying to see, everyone trying to hear what would happen next. The elderly woman who had spoken pushed her way to the front, her walking stick tapping against the ground, her gray hair covered with a colorful headscarf. She pointed her stick at Williams like a weapon, her face twisted with righteous anger. "You heard me, you foolish man," she shouted, her voice carrying across the market. 3 months pregnant, and you threw her out. I was at the hospital that day for my own treatment, and I saw her crying in the waiting room after her scan. I asked her what was wrong, and she told me. She told me she had just found out she was carrying her first child, and she was going home to surprise her husband. The woman's voice broke with emotion, tears streaming down her wrinkled cheeks. She was so happy, so excited, holding that skin picture like it was made of gold. She said she'd been trying for years, and she was finally pregnant, finally going to give you the child you'd been begging for. That was the day you destroyed her. Williams made a sound that wasn't quite human, his hands going to his head, pulling at his hair. "No," he whispered, then louder. "No, no, no, that's not. She never told me. She never, because you didn't give her a chance," another voice shouted from the crowd. A middle-aged man stepped forward, his mechanic's uniform stained with oil. "I lived in your state. I was there that day. I saw everything. Your wife came home in the afternoon, happy, smiling, carrying shopping bags. I remember because I'd never seen her look so happy. But before she even reached the gate, your guard stopped her, told her she wasn't allowed in anymore." More people were speaking up now, the story spilling out from multiple witnesses, pieces of a nightmare that Mima-Peace hadn't fully understood until this moment. A woman in market clothes pushed forward, anger flashing in her eyes. "I was bringing vegetables to your kitchen that day. I saw that Grace woman standing in your doorway, watching Mrs. Chinelo being turned away, and she was smiling like she'd won something. And when Mrs. Chinelo started crying, begging the guards to let her at least get her things, Grace called out and said Mr. Williams' orders were clear. The attempted murder wasn't allowed to take anything, not even her clothes." Chinelo was trembling now, violent shakes running through her whole body, and Mima-Peace held her tighter, feeling her own anger building. "How could you?" Mima-Peace found herself speaking, her voice cutting through the noise. "How could you throw your pregnant wife into the streets without even listening to her side of the story?" Williams lifted his head, and Mima-Peace was shocked to see that he looked genuinely confused beneath the anguish. "I didn't know," he said hoarsely. "I swear on everything, I didn't know she was pregnant. She never. I tried to tell you." Chinelo spoke for the first time since the revelation, her voice so soft everyone had to strain to hear. "That day, when your guards were dragging me away, I kept screaming that I had something important to tell you, that you had to listen, that everything would make sense if you just gave me 5 minutes. Do you remember?" William stared at her, his face crumbling. "I thought you were just making excuses. You thought I was lying," Chinelo finished. "You thought everything I said was a lie because Grace had spent 3 months poisoning you against me. Every time I complained that she was getting too comfortable in our house, you said I was jealous. Every time I warned you that she was manipulating you, you said I was controlling. Every time I begged you to see what was happening, you chose her word over mine. She pulled away from Mama Peace, standing alone now, her voice growing stronger. So when I came home that day, excited to finally tell you we were going to have a baby you'd wanted for so long, I found the guard blocking me, and you standing in the doorway with her, and you were looking at me like I was garbage, like I was evil, like I was something you needed to throw away as quickly as possible. Williams tried to stand, but his legs gave out, and he collapsed back into the mud. What happened to? He couldn't finish the question, his voice breaking completely. The market went silent again, everyone waiting for the answer they both dreaded and needed to hear. Chinelo looked down at him, and Mama P saw something in her eyes that was beyond pain, beyond anger, beyond anything she'd seen in 3 months of feeding this broken woman. It was emptiness, the kind that comes after everything else has been burned away. "I lost a baby," Chinelo said quietly, and women in the crowd gasped, many covering their mouths, some beginning to cry. "I spent the first week sleeping in my car, the car that you'd paid for, until your lawyers found me and took it back because it was in your name. Then I was on the streets, trying to find somewhere safe to sleep, trying to figure out what to do. My mother wanted me to come home, but she lives in a village with no hospital, no prenatal care. My sister offered to let me stay, but she has 6 children in a 1-bedroom apartment, and I couldn't. Her voice caught, but she pushed through. I was scared to go anywhere I knew because your lawyers were everywhere, serving papers, freezing accounts, making sure I had nothing. You were so thorough in destroying me. So I just walked and walked, trying to figure out how my life had fallen apart so completely in one day." She wrapped her arms around herself, and Mama Peace wanted to go to her, but somehow knew she needed to stand alone for this. 2 weeks after you threw me out, I started bleeding. I was sleeping under a bridge in Yaba, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and there was so much blood, so much. Her voice broke, and several women in the crowd were openly sobbing now. I tried to walk to a hospital, but I collapsed on the road. Someone called an ambulance, but by the time I got there, it was too late. The baby was gone. Your baby, the one you'd wanted so badly, the one I tried for 6 years to give you, gone because you threw me away. Williams let out a howl of pure anguish, a sound that made even his security guards flinch. He bent over in the mud, his hands clawing at the ground, his whole body convulsing with sobs. "I'm sorry," he choked out between gasps. "I'm so sorry. God forgive me. Chinelo, forgive me. I didn't know. You didn't want to know," Chinelo corrected coldly. "You didn't care enough to find out. You just wanted me gone so you could play house with your new woman, so you could feel young and alive and powerful. And our baby paid the price for your ego." She took a shaky breath, and when she continued, her voice was eerily calm. "After I lost a baby, I lost myself too. I spent weeks in that hospital, and when they discharged me, I had nowhere to go, no money, no energy to even try. The doctors said I was severely depressed, that I needed support and medication and therapy. But I had nothing, no one, just shame and pain and this emptiness where my future used to be." Mama Peace couldn't stay back in the mall. She moved to Chinelo's side, taking her hand, feeling how cold it was despite the warm morning. But then Chinelo continued, and for the first time, something almost like a smile touched her lips. "I ended up here, at this market, 3 months ago. I don't even remember walking here. I just found myself sitting by that wall, watching Mama Peace work, watching her feed people with such kindness and love, and I thought, at least there's still some good in the world, even if I'll never experience it again." She squeezed Mama Peace's hand. And then this beautiful, generous woman who barely has enough to feed her own children started bringing me food. She didn't ask questions, didn't judge me, didn't want anything from me. She just fed me day after day like I mattered, like I was worth something. Tears were rolling down Mama Peace's cheeks now, and Chinelo turned to her with genuine warmth in her eyes for the first time since the helicopter arrived. "You saved my life, Mama Peace, not just by feeding my body, but by reminding me that I'm still human, that I'm still worth caring about, that maybe I can still find a reason to keep breathing." The two women stood together, and the crowd erupted in applause and shouts of "God bless you, Mama Peace, and you are a true Nigerian woman." But Williams was scrambling forward on his knees, muddy hands reaching toward Chinelo, his face desperate. "Please," he begged, "please let me make this right. Let me take you to the best hospital, the best therapist. Give me back my baby." Chinelo asked softly, "Can you do that, Mr. Williams? Can you give me back the 3 months I spent thinking I deserved what happened to me? Can you give me back my ability to trust anyone ever again?" Williams shook his head, unable to speak. "Then you can't make this right," Chinelo said simply. "Some things can't be fixed with money or apologies. Some things stay broken." She turned to walk away, leaning slightly on Mama Peace, and the crowd began to part for them. But then one of Williams' security guards spoke up, his voice hesitant but urgent. "There's something you should know. Something Mr. Williams hasn't told you yet." Everyone froze. Chinelo turned back slowly, her eyes narrowed. "What?" The guard glanced at Williams, who looked like he wanted to stop him but couldn't find the words. The guard continued, "We found them, Grace and Maxwell, 2 weeks ago." The market exploded with shocked exclamations, everyone pressing closer. Mama Peace felt Chinelo's hand tighten around hers painfully. "Where?" Chinelo asked, her voice deadly calm. The guard hesitated, then said, "In Ghana, living in a beachfront mansion, spending money like water. We had them arrested, and they are being extradited back to Nigeria. They'll be here tomorrow." He paused, then added quietly, "Mr. Williams has been waiting to tell you this in person. He wanted you to have the chance to face them. To what?" Chinelo interrupted, her voice rising. "To get revenge? To watch them suffer like I suffered. To get justice," Williams said hoarsely, finally finding his voice. "To see them punished for what they did to both of us, to our marriage, to our baby. Chinelo, please, at least stay until tomorrow. At least face them with me. Let them see that they didn't destroy us, that we—" "There is no we," Chinelo cut him off sharply. "There hasn't been a we since the day you chose to believe I could hurt you. And I don't need justice from them. They already have to live with being the kind of people who would do what they did. That's punishment enough." She turned away again, but then stopped, her shoulders tight. When she spoke again, her voice was different, tinged with something Mama Peace couldn't quite identify. Maybe curiosity, maybe anger, maybe something darker. "Where are they being held?" Chinelo asked without turning around. "At the Central Police Station," the guard answered. "They arrive at the airport tomorrow at noon. Then they'll be processed, and I want to see them," Chinelo said suddenly, and everyone went still. She turned back around, and her face was set in an expression that sent chills down Mama Peace's spine. "I want to look them in the eyes, both of them, and I want them to see what they did. I want them to see that I survived them." William's face lit up with desperate hope. Yes, of course. I'll arrange everything. But," Chinelo continued, her voice like steel, "you don't get to be there, Mr. Williams. This isn't about you. This is about me finally closing a door that should have been closed 3 months ago. You will arrange for me to see them, alone, and then you will stay away from me forever. Do you understand?" The hope died in William's eyes, but he nodded slowly. "Anything you want. Chinelo, anything." "Good." Chinelo straightened her shoulders, and Mama Peace saw the transformation happening in front of her. The broken, homeless woman was disappearing, replaced by someone stronger, someone who had survived the worst and was ready to face the people who'd tried to destroy her. "Tomorrow at noon, then." "But where will you stay tonight?" Williams asked desperately. "Let me at least. She'll stay with me," Mama Peace heard herself saying firmly. "She's been with me for 3 months, and she'll stay with me as long as she needs." Chinelo turned to her with surprise and gratitude in her eyes. "Mama Peace, you don't have to." "I know I don't have to," Mama Peace said, pulling her close. "But I'm going to." She looked at Williams with steel in her voice. "Your helicopter can leave now, Mr. Williams. We'll find our own way to the police station tomorrow." Williams looked like he wanted to argue, but one look at Chinelo's face told him it would be useless. Will Chinelo find closure when she faces her betrayers? What will she say to them? Subscribe and turn on notifications because Chapter 4 is going to reveal the confrontation you've been waiting for. And trust me, you don't want to miss it. Mama Peace's one-room apartment had never felt so crowded, but in a good way, in a way that reminded her what home was supposed to feel like. That evening, after the helicopter had finally lifted off and the market crowd had dispersed, still buzzing with gossip and speculation, Mama Peace had taken Chinelo home to meet her children. Her 3 kids, Blessing, 14, Junior, 11, and little Amaka, 8, had stared at Chinelo with wide eyes when Mama Peace explained that this was a sad woman from the market who would be staying with them for a while. But children have a way of accepting things that adults question, and within an hour, Amaka was sitting in Chinelo's lap, showing her drawings while chattering about her school day. Chinelo had cried again, but these were different tears, softer ones, as she held this small girl who trusted her instantly, who didn't see a broken woman but just another adult who might read her a story. That night, Mama Peace gave Chinelo her own bed while she slept on a mat with the children, and for the first time in 3 months, Chinelo slept indoors, safe, with the sound of a family breathing around her in the darkness. Now it was morning, Monday, the day Chinelo would face the people who had destroyed her life, and Mama Peace watched her get ready with a mixture of pride and concern. Williams had sent a car at 10. Not the helicopter, not a convoy, just a simple black sedan with a quiet driver who handed Chinelo a package before stepping back respectfully. Inside was a beautiful blue dress, expensive but tasteful, with shoes and a handbag to match. There was also an envelope with money that Chinelo didn't open, just set aside with a neutral expression. "You don't have to wear it if you don't want to," Mama Peace said gently. "I have something you can borrow." "No," Chinelo said, running her hands over the soft fabric. "I want to wear it. I want them to see that I'm not broken anymore, that they didn't win. If I show up looking defeated, they'll think they succeeded." She looked at Mama Peace with determination in her eyes. "I need to do this looking like the woman I was before they tried to destroy me. Does that make sense?" Mama Peace nodded, understanding completely. She helped Chinelo into the dress, which fit perfectly. Williams might be a fool in many ways, but he'd apparently remembered his wife's size. When Chinelo was ready, she looked in Mama Peace's small cracked mirror and barely recognized herself. The woman staring back was elegant, dignified, strong, so different from the hollow-eyed ghost who had sat by the market wall for 3 months. "You're beautiful," little Amaka said from the doorway, her eyes wide. "You look like a queen." Chinelo knelt down, carefully in her new dress, and took Amaka's small hands. "Thank you, sweetheart. Will you pray for me today? I'm going to do something very hard, and I need all the prayers I can get." Amaka nodded solemnly. "I'll pray that God makes you strong like Mama." Chinelo hugged her tight, then stood and looked at Mama Peace. "Will you come with me? I know it's a lot to ask, and you have work, but I don't think I can do this alone." "Of course I'm coming," Mama Peace said firmly. "Blessing can watch the store for a few hours. This is more important." They rode to the police station in silence, Chinelo's hands clasped tight in her lap, her breathing carefully controlled. Mama Peace could see the tension building in her with every passing block, could see the armor she was putting on piece by piece. When they arrived at the central police station, there was already a crowd of reporters and cameras outside, word having spread about the dramatic case of the billionaire's wife and the lovers who had betrayed them both. Williams' influence showed in how quickly they were ushered inside, past the chaos, into a quiet corridor where a senior police officer waited. Mrs. Williams. The officer greeted with respect, apparently not aware or not caring about the divorce that was surely coming. "They arrived an hour ago. We have them in separate rooms right now. Mr. Williams wanted me to tell you that he's kept his word. He's not here, but has arranged for you to have as much time as you need with them. Which one would you like to see first?" Chinelo's jaw tightened. "Grace. I want to see her first." The officer nodded and led them down the corridor to a plain door with a small window. Through it, Mama Peace could see a woman sitting at a metal table, her hands cuffed in front of her. Even in police custody, Grace was beautiful, light-skinned with long weave flowing down her back, makeup still perfect, wearing designer clothes despite her situation. But there was fear in her eyes, real fear, as she stared at the wall. "We'll be watching from the next room," the officer said. "If you need anything, just wave at the camera. And Mrs. Williams, I'm truly sorry for everything you've been through. What they did to you, it's unforgivable." Chinelo just nodded, her hand on the door handle. She turned to Mama Peace. "Wait here. I need to do this part alone." "Are you sure?" Mama Peace asked, worried. "I'm sure." Chinelo took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and walked into the room. Mama Peace pressed close to the observation window, watching as Grace's head snapped up at the sound of the door. For a moment, the two women just stared at each other, the wife and the mistress, the betrayed and the betrayer. Then Grace's face transformed into a mask of fake concern. "Oh my God, Chinelo." Grace stood up, her chains rattling. "Thank God you're okay. I've been so worried. I heard you were missing, and I—" "Sit down," Chinelo said quietly, and something in her voice made Grace's performance stutter. "She's Saturday." Chinelo moved slowly around the table, not sitting, just circling like a predator, and Mima Peace felt pride surge through her chest. This was not the broken woman from 3 months ago. This was someone who had walked through hell and come out forged in fire. "You're probably wondering why I'm here," Chinelo said, her voice conversational, almost pleasant. "You're probably thinking I came to scream at you, to attack you, to cry and ask why you destroyed my life." Grace said nothing, but her eyes followed Chinelo nervously, her earlier confidence crumbling. "But I didn't come for that," Chinelo continued, stopping directly across the table from her. "I came to thank you." That shocked Grace into speaking. "What?" "I came to thank you," Chinelo repeated, "for showing me exactly who my husband was, for revealing that the man I loved for 22 years was someone who could be manipulated so easily, who could throw away decades of marriage for a pretty face and some flattery. You did me a favor, really." Grace's face twisted into something ugly. "Oh, please, spare me the brave act. You were pathetic, Chinelo, following him around like a puppy, try and control who he talked to, who he hired. You made it so easy for me. All I had to do was be fun, be sexy, be everything you want, everything I wasn't." Chinelo's voice went cold. "You mean young? Because that's all you had, Grace. Youth. And even that's temporary. Look at you now, sitting in chains. Your boyfriend who you betrayed my husband for has already turned on you, ready to testify against you for a reduced sentence. Was it worth it?" Grace's face went pale. "What?" "Maxwell wouldn't. He already has," Chinelo said with satisfaction. "The police told me everything. His claiming it was all your idea, that you seduced him too, that you manipulated both of them. His trying to save himself by throwing you under the bus. Sound familiar?" For the first time, Grace looked genuinely scared, her hands trembling. "That bastard, that lying bastard, it was his idea from the start, is the one who—" She stopped, realizing she was admitting guilt. Chinelo smiled, a cold smile that made Mama Peace shiver despite being on her side. "There it is. The truth finally comes out. It was all calculated from the beginning, wasn't it? You and Maxwell planned the whole thing. Seduce the stupid rich husband, frame the wife, steal the money, disappear together. How long were you planning it? Months? Years?" Grace's face hardened, the mask finally dropping completely. 3 years, she said flatly. 3 years of playing the sweet secretary, of listening to him complain about you, of pretending to care about his boring business stories. Do you know how exhausting it was? How many times I had to pretend to be interested in his pathetic attempts to feel young. You think you suffered? I suffered every day I had to let that old man touch me." Chinelo's hand twitched, but she kept her composure. "And the poisoning accusation? Whose idea was that?" "Mine," Grace said with bitter pride. "Maxwell wanted to just steal the money and run, but I knew we needed you gone first. As long as you were in the picture, Williams would never fully trust me, never give me the kind of access I needed. So I made him sick, just a little bit, nothing serious, just enough to make him paranoid, and then I convinced him it was you." She leaned forward, her eyes glittering with malice. "And he believed me so easily, Chinelo, so easily, because deep down he was tired of you too, tired of your nagging, your jealousy, your boring loyalty. I just gave him permission to admit it." Mama P saw Chinalo's shoulders tense, saw her fighting to maintain control, but her voice remained steady. And my pregnancy? Did you know about that when you had me thrown out? Grace's smile faltered. What pregnancy? I was 3 months pregnant, Chinalo said, her voice dropping to a whisper. The baby your scheme killed. The baby my husband wanted for 6 years. Did you know? For the first time, Grace looked genuinely shaken. No, I didn't. I wouldn't have. Wouldn't have what? Chinalo's voice cracked. Wouldn't have gone through with it. Wouldn't have destroyed my life if you'd known there was a child involved. Don't lie to me now, Grace. We both know you would have done it anyway. You would have killed my baby and felt nothing, because people like you don't feel anything except greed. Grace sat back, her face pale, saying nothing. Chinalo leaned across the table, her voice low and fierce. I lost everything because of you. My husband, my home, my future, my baby, my will to live. I spent 3 months wishing I was dead, sleeping on the streets, eating from garbage, feeling like I had no reason to exist. She straightened up, and when she continued, her voice was stronger. But you know what? I survived. I found people who cared about me with no agenda, no manipulation, no lies. I found my strength again. And now I'm standing here, free, while you're sitting there in chains. Your partner has betrayed you just like you betrayed everyone else, and you're going to spend the next 20 years in prison thinking about how your greed destroyed you. Chinalo pulled out a photograph from her bag. Mama Peace hadn't seen her bring it, and placed it on the table. It was an ultrasound image, grainy and black and white. That was my baby, Chinalo said softly. That was the child who didn't get to exist because of your scheme. I want you to look at this picture every night before you sleep in your cell, and I want you to remember that actions have consequences, that the people you destroy are real, that their pain matters. Grace stared at the picture, tears starting to stream down her cheeks, whether from remorse or self-pity Mama Peace couldn't tell. I'm sorry, Grace whispered. I'm so sorry. Chinalo, I didn't mean for... Yes, you did. Chinalo cut her off. You meant every bit of it. You just didn't mean to get caught. She turned toward the door, then stopped and looked back one more time. I forgive you, Grace. Not because you deserve it, but because I refuse to let hatred for you poison the rest of my life the way your lies poisoned my marriage. I forgive you, and I never want to see your face again. She walked out, closing the door behind her with a soft click, leaving Grace sobbing at the table. Mama Peace rushed to her, pulling her into a tight hug, and felt Chinalo's body shaking with suppressed sobs. You were so strong in there, Mama Peace whispered. So strong. I don't feel strong, Chinalo admitted, her voice muffled against Mama Peace's shoulder. I feel like I'm going to fall apart. But you didn't, Mama Peace said firmly. You stood tall and you faced her, and you didn't let her break you again. That's strength. The police officer approached quietly. Do you still want to see Maxwell? Chinalo pulled back, wiping her eyes, taking a deep breath. Yes, let me finish this. What will Chinalo say to the man who betrayed both her and her husband? Will she finally find the closure she needs? Make sure you're subscribed because Chapter 5 is going to bring this story to an ending you won't believe. Hit that like button and let's finish this together. Maxwell looked different from what Mama Peace expected. In her mind, she'd imagined some smooth, handsome villain, but the man sitting in the interrogation room looked ordinary, average height, average build, average face, the kind of person you'd pass on the street without noticing. Maybe that was why Williams had trusted him so completely. He didn't look dangerous. He didn't look like someone capable of destroying lives. He was slumped in his chair when they entered, his wrists cuffed to the table, his expensive suit rumpled and stained. When the door opened and he saw Chinalo, his face went through several expressions: surprise, guilt, fear, and finally, calculation. That last one made Mama Peace immediately dislike him even more than Grace. At least Grace had been honest in her hatred and greed. This man was still looking for angles. Chinalo, he said, his voice smooth despite the circumstances. I'm glad you're okay. When David told me you disappeared, I was worried sick. Don't. Chinalo cut him off sharply, moving to stand across from him. Unlike with Grace, she didn't circle, didn't play games. She just stood there, looking at him with such intensity that he actually leaned back. Don't insult me by pretending you cared. Don't insult the 20 years I knew you, the dinners at our house, the times David called you his brother, the times I defended you when your own family gave up on you. Don't stand there and lie to my face. Maxwell. Maxwell's smooth expression cracked slightly. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Chinelo, you have to understand. Understand what? Chinelo's voice was ice. Understand that you and Gray spent 3 years planning to destroy your best friend's life? Understand that you helped frame me for attempted murder? Understand that you stole millions and ran off together while I was sleeping on the streets? She leaned forward, her hands flat on the table. What exactly should I understand? Maxwell. He looked away, unable to meet her eyes. It started as just business. Grace was skimming money from accounts, little amounts David wouldn't notice, and she needed someone with access to move it. I was in debt, bad debt, the kind that gets people hurt. She offered me a way out. And then what? Chinelo pressed. You fell in love with her? Or was it always just about the money? Maxwell laughed bitterly. Love? No. Grace doesn't love anyone except herself. I knew that from the start. But she was smart and ruthless, and she showed me how much money we could take if we played it right. David trusted me with everything. Passwords, accounts, investments. It was too easy. He finally looked up at Chinelo, and there was something almost like regret in his eyes. But framing you wasn't part of the original plan. That was all Grace. She convinced me it was necessary, that David would never fully commit to her while you were still in the picture. I didn't want to. Chinelo, you have to believe that. I don't have to believe anything, Chinelo said coldly. And I don't. You stood by while she destroyed my life. You stood by while David threw me out. You were at our house that night, weren't you? I saw your car in the driveway. Maxwell nodded miserably. I was there. Grace called me, said the plan was moving forward, said I needed to be ready to help David deal with his dangerous wife. I sat in the living room while you were being dragged out, while you were screaming for him to listen, and I did nothing. His voice broke. I did nothing, Chinelo, and I've regretted it every single day since. Tears were running down his face now, but Mama Peace felt no sympathy. These were the tears of someone caught, not someone truly sorry. Chinelo must have felt the same, because her expression didn't soften. Tell me about the baby, Chinelo said quietly, and Maxwell looked confused. What baby? My baby. The one I was carrying when you and Grace had me thrown into the streets. The one I lost 2 weeks later because I had nowhere safe to go, no medical care, nothing. Tell me about that baby. Maxwell. Maxwell's face went gray. Oh, God. Chinelo, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. If I had known, you would have what? Chinelo interrupted. Stop the plan? Grow a conscience. Don't lie to yourself or me. You knew what you were doing would destroy me. You just didn't care about the details of how. She pulled out the same ultrasound photo she'd shown Grace and placed it in front of Maxwell. His hands were cuffed, but he leaned forward to look at it, his face crumpling completely. That was David's child, Chinelo said, her voice shaking now. The child he'd wanted for 6 years, the child I was finally able to give him. Your best friend's baby. And your scheme killed it before it even had a chance to be born. Maxwell sobbed openly now, his head dropping to the table. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Chinelo. I never meant for any of this to happen the way it did. It all spiraled out of control. No, Chinelo said firmly. It didn't spiral. You made choices every step of the way. You chose money over friendship. You chose lies over truth. You chose to destroy a family for your own benefit. Those weren't accidents, Maxwell. Those were decisions. She straightened up, her voice becoming businesslike. Grace told me you're trying to testify against her for a reduced sentence. Is that true? Maxwell nodded without lifting his head. My lawyer says if I cooperate fully, show remorse, explain how she manipulated me. She didn't manipulate you, Chinelo said flatly. You were partners, equal partners in this. But I'm going to do something that might surprise you. That made Maxwell look up, confusion and hope warring on his face. What? I'm going to tell the prosecutor that I don't want you to get a reduced sentence, Chinelo said calmly. I'm going to testify about every detail of what your actions cost me, my marriage, my home, my baby, my will to live. I'm going to make sure the judge understands the full scope of what you and Grace did, and I'm going to ask for the maximum sentence for both of you. Maxwell's face went white. But Chinelo, I'm cooperating. I'm trying to make things right. You can't make things right. Chinelo cut him off. You can't give me back my baby. You can't give me back the 3 months I lost. You can't give me back my ability to trust people. The only thing you can do now is accept the consequences of your choices. She leaned close, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow felt more powerful than shouting. I want you to spend every day in prison thinking about this, Maxwell. I want you to remember that you had everything, a best friend who loved you, a woman who defended you, a life built on trust and loyalty, and you threw it away for money that's already gone. Grace spent it all, you know, every naira, on clothes, hotels, jewelry, trying to impress people she'll never see again. You destroyed everything for nothing. Maxwell made a choking sound, his whole body shaking. Please, Chinelo, please, I'm begging you, the way I beg to be let back into my house. Chinelo asked, the way I beg on the streets for food before Mama Peace found me? The way I would have begged for my baby's life if I'd had the chance? Sorry, Maxwell, but I'm all out of mercy. She turned toward the door, but Maxwell's voice stopped her. What about David? Have you forgiven him? Chinelo turned back slowly, her expression unreadable. David is as guilty as we are, Maxwell said desperately. Maybe more. We manipulated him. Yes, but he's the one who threw you out. He's the one who refused to listen. He's the one who chose Grace over you. If you're going to condemn us, what about him? For a long moment, Chinelo said nothing, and Mama Peace held her breath, wondering what her answer would be. Finally, Chinelo spoke, her voice soft but clear. David was a fool, and he'll live with that for the rest of his life. Every time he sees a pregnant woman, every time he thinks about the family he could have had, every time he looks in the mirror, he'll remember what he destroyed. That's his punishment. She paused. But there's a difference between being fooled and being the fool who does the fooling. David was weak and prideful and stupid, but he didn't plot against me. He didn't spend years planning my destruction. He didn't steal from me. He just believed the wrong people. And maybe, someday, when I've had enough time and distance, I might even forgive him for that. But you and Grace? Never. You knew exactly what you were doing every step of the way. Maxwell slumped back in his chair, defeated, all his angles exhausted. Then I guess there's nothing left to say. No, Chinelo agreed. There isn't. Goodbye, Maxwell. I hope prison teaches you something about loyalty. She walked out of the room with her head high, Mama Peace following close behind. As soon as the door closed, though, Chinelo's legs gave out, and Mama Peace caught her, holding her up while she sobbed, deep, wrenching sob that seemed to come from the core of her being, releasing 3 months of pain and anger and grief all at once. The police officer appeared, concern on his face, but Mama Peace waved him back. She just needs a minute, she said firmly, rubbing Chinelo's back in circles like she did for her own children. She just needs to let it out. They stood there in the corridor for several minutes, Chinelo crying while Mama Peace held her, until finally the sobs subsided and Chinelo pulled back, wiping her face with her hands. I'm sorry, she said, her voice hoarse. Don't apologize, Mama Peace said fiercely. You just faced the 2 people who destroyed your life and you didn't break. Crying isn't breaking, Chinelo. Crying is healing. Chinelo managed a watery smile. When did you become so wise? When I had to raise 3 children alone and keep running a business and feed homeless women who turned out to be queens, Mama Peace said with a small smile. Pain teaches you things, if you let it. They made their way back through the police station, declining the officers off of a private room to rest, just wanting to get out into fresh air and sunshine. As they stepped outside, cameras flashed and reporters shouted questions, but Mama Peace pushed through them, keeping a protective arm around Chinelo until they reached the car. The driver opened the door, and Chinelo paused before getting in. She looked at Mama Peace, really looked at her, and said, "I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done for me. You saved my life. Mama Peace, in every way a person can be saved." Mama Peace felt tears pricking her own eyes. "You don't need to thank me. Just promise me you'll keep living, keep fighting, keep remembering that you're worth more than what they tried to make you believe." "I promise," Chinelo said, and she meant it. Then she pulled an envelope from her bag, the one Williams had sent with address, the one she hadn't opened. "This is for you and your children. Don't argue," she added quickly, seeing Mama Peace about to protest. "You fed me for 3 months when you could barely feed your own family. You gave me hope when I had none. This is just money. Mama Peace, what you gave me was life." Mama Peace opened the envelope with shaking hands and gasped. There were stacks of crisp bills inside, more money than she'd seen in her entire life, enough to pay school fees for years, enough to expand her business, enough to move her family to a better place, enough to change their lives. "This is too much," she whispered. "It's not enough," Chinelo countered. "It will never be enough for what you did for me. But it's a start. Take it, please. Let me help you the way you helped me." Mama Peace pulled her into a fierce hug, both women crying now, holding each other like lifelines in the middle of the chaos. When they finally pulled apart, Chinelo had one more thing to say. "I'm going to stay with my sister for a while, get back on my feet, figure out what comes next. But I'll come visit you at the market, I promise. You and your children are my family now, the family I chose, and I won't forget that." "You better not," Mama P said with a tearful laugh. "Amaka will hunt you down if you disappear. She's already planning your wedding to some imaginary prince." Chinelo laughed, a real laugh, the first one Mama P had heard from her in 3 months, and it was like watching the sun break through storm clouds. As the car pulled away, Mama P stood on the sidewalk, clutching the envelope, watching until Chinelo's car disappeared into traffic. A reporter approached, microphone extended, asking for a comment. But Mama P just shook her head and walked away, heading back to her market, her stall, her life. She had food to cook, children to feed, a business to run. But now, thanks to Chinelo's gift, she could do it with a little less desperation, a little more hope. As she walked through the familiar streets, she thought about the strange journey of the past 3 months, how a quiet act of kindness, just feeding someone who looked hungry, had led to all of this. She thought about Chinelo, about her strength and grace in the face of unimaginable betrayal. She thought about Williams and his helicopter and his tears, about Grace and Maxwell in their prison cells, about choices and consequences and the strange ways life weaves people together. When she reached her stall, Blessing looked up from where she was serving customers, her eyes questioning. Mama Peace just smiled and mouthed later, then tied on her apron and got to work. There would be time tonight to tell her children about the money, about the ending to the story of the sad woman by the wall, about how kindness sometimes comes back to you in ways you never expect. For now, there was rice to cook, customers to serve, life to live, and somewhere across the city, Chinelo was riding in the back of that car, watching Lagos flow past the windows, thinking about everything she'd lost and everything she'd gained, feeling the weight of the past 3 months beginning to lift from her shoulders. She didn't know what came next, divorce, therapy, rebuilding her life from scratch. She didn't know if she'd ever fully heal from the betrayals, ever fully trust again, ever fully forgive a man who had thrown her away. But she knew, with absolute certainty, that she would survive. She'd already survived the worst. Everything else was just living. Her phone buzzed. Williams, of course, unable to help himself even after she'd told him to stay away. She looked at the message. "Please tell me you're okay. Please tell me there's some hope for us. I'll wait as long as it takes." Chinelo stared at the message for a long moment, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. Finally, she typed a response. "I'm okay, but there's no us anymore, David. That died the day you chose to believe I could hurt you. I hope you find peace with your choices, but you won't find it with me. Goodbye." She hit send, then blocked his number, cutting the last tie to her old life. It hurt. God, it hurt, like cutting off a limb. But sometimes you have to cut away dead tissue for healthy flesh to grow. The car drove on, and Chinelo closed her eyes, letting the sun warm her face through the window, feeling alive, feeling free, feeling like maybe, just maybe, the best parts of the story were still waiting to be written. And that's the end of Chinelo and Mama Peace's story, a story about betrayal, survival, kindness, and second chances. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more incredible true life stories. Drop a comment below telling me what you would have done if you were Chinelo. Would you have forgiven Williams? Would you have confronted Grace and Maxwell? Let me know. And remember, sometimes the people who save us aren't the ones we expect, and sometimes the greatest strength comes from the darkest moments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next story. God bless you.